I spent New Year's Eve completely alone. At exactly midnight, my reflection stopped copying me. New Year's Eve has always felt artificial to me. Everyone pretends that time actually means something, that when the clock hits midnight, your mistakes disappear, your regrets reset, and your life magically improves. People drink, scream numbers into the war, kiss strangers, and lie to themselves. That year, I didn't even bother pretending. I was alone. Not in a poetic way, not in a finding myself way, just left behind. So I rented a small apartment outside the city. Cheap, temporary. A place that didn't expect me to stay long. The building looked older than it should have been, like it had survived something it never fully recovered from. When the landlord handed me the keys, he avoided eye contact. "New Year's Eve?" he asked. "Yes?" He hesitated, then said quietly, "Just don't look into the mirror at midnight." I laughed out of reflex. He didn't smile. I should have asked questions. I didn't. The apartment felt wrong the moment I stepped inside. Not dangerous, not haunted. Just unwelcoming, like a room that didn't want witnesses. The heater worked, but the air stayed cold. The silence pressed against my ears. In the narrow hallway, directly facing the front door, hung a large mirror in a chipped wooden frame. Old, darkened. A long crack ran from the top corner down the side. I noticed something unsettling. The reflection wasn't accurate. The light behind me looked weaker inside the mirror. My face appeared slightly delayed, like it was thinking before copying me. I told myself I was tired. I turned on the TV, a New Year's broadcast, crowds, music, smiling hosts counting down to happiness. I muted it. Silence rushed in too fast. 11:38 p.m. I poured a drink and sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone. No messages, no missed calls, no reason to expect midnight to matter. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, careful. Inside the apartment, I held my breath. The steps stopped in the hallway, right in front of the mirror. "Hello," I called. No response. The mirror made a soft click, like glass adjusting under pressure. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. "Are you ready?" I stared at the screen. Before I could reply, another message arrived. He doesn't like when people are late. My heart started racing. "Who is this?" I typed. Read. No reply. The mirror clicked again. 11:47 p.m. I stood up and walked toward the hallway. The mirror reflected me perfectly now. Normal. Still. Too still. I raised my hand. The reflection raised its hand. A second late. I stepped back. So did it. But it smiled. I wasn't smiling. "Stop," I whispered. The reflection tilted its head, studying me. Behind it, the hallway and the mirror looked longer than it should have been. Darker. And something tall moved in the background. A shadow that didn't belong to the apartment. The TV suddenly unmuted itself. 10 minutes to midnight. My phone vibrated again. "You look too early." I didn't agree to anything, I said out loud. The reflection's smile widened. 11:55 p.m. The air felt heavier, thicker, like the apartment was slowly sealing itself shut. I tried opening a window. It wouldn't budge. I tried the front door. Locked. I hadn't locked it. The TV started the countdown segment. 10. The mirror fogged slightly from the inside. 8. The shadow behind my reflection pressed closer, stretching unnaturally. 5. "Please," I whispered, though I didn't know who I was begging. 3. I shut my eyes. 2. The mirror cracked louder. "Why? What?" Midnight. The sound didn't explode. It collapsed. The world seemed to fold inward, like reality skipped a frame. My ears rang. The lights dimmed. When I opened my eyes, my reflection was gone. The mirror was empty. Then something stepped out of it. It wore my face, but wrong. Too smooth, eyes too calm. Movements slightly delayed, like it wasn't used to gravity yet. "Happy New Year," it said in my voice. I tried to run. My body didn't respond. "You looked," it continued. "You stayed. That's consent." "What are you?" I asked. It looked genuinely curious. "A continuation," it said. "A replacement." The mirror pulled at me. Not physically, but inevitably. Like gravity deciding I no longer belonged outside. The last thing I felt was cold glass swallowing me whole. I exist in reflection now. I see the apartment through the mirror. I watch it live my life. It laughs at the right moments. It texts my friends. It answers calls I never will again. No one notices the difference. Every New Year's Eve, someone new rents this apartment. Someone lonely. Someone tired. Someone who looks just a second too long into the mirror. And when they do, I try to warn them. But mirrors don't let screams through. I answered a New Year's countdown call, and I wasn't the only one listening. New Year's Eve is supposed to be loud. Fireworks tearing the sky apart. Music spilling from open windows. People shouting numbers together, believing that if they say them loudly enough, something in their lives will finally change. For me, New Year's Eve was quiet. I worked night security at a call center no one remembered anymore. It sat on the edge of the city, surrounded by warehouses and empty parking lots. Most of the company had moved to modern offices years ago. This building stayed open only because no one bothered to officially close it. Every year before New Year's, management promised we'd shut down early. Every year, something went wrong. That year, I was the only one scheduled. The building felt hollow after sunset. Rows of cubicles stretched into darkness. Computer monitors were gone, but the desks remained, each with an old landline phone bolted into place. No caller ID, no voicemail, just blinking red lights that never lit up anymore. The air smelled like dust, plastic, and something metallic underneath. At 11:30 p.m., I made my final round. All doors locked, emergency exits sealed. Windows overlooking the city showed distant flashes of fireworks warming up for midnight. I returned to the security desk and sat down. At 11:42 p.m., a phone rang. The sound sliced through the silence. I stared at it for several seconds before answering. "Customer support," I said out of habit. Breathing answered me. Slow, intentional, too close to the receiver. "Hello?" I asked. A man's voice spoke calmly, like he'd rehearsed the moment. "You're still there," he said. "Good." The line went dead. I checked the phone log. Nothing. I told myself it was a prank. Wrong number. Old system glitching. Then another phone rang. Different desk. I walked across the floor to answer it. A woman's voice this time. Older. Tired. "Is it almost time?" she asked. "Almost time for what?" I said. "For the counting," she whispered. I asked who she was. She said, "They told us someone would still be listening." The call ended. I felt watched. The fluorescent lights hummed louder than before. At 11:50 p.m., every phone in the building rang at once, not randomly, in perfect synchronization. Dozens of identical rings overlapping until the sound became unbearable. I covered my ears. Then, silence. One phone kept ringing, the one at my desk. I picked it up. A child's voice spoke softly. "Please don't hang up." My throat went dry. "How did you get this number?" I asked. "We don't have numbers anymore," the child said. "We only have time." "What do you want?" "To count," the child replied. "They won't let us do it alone now." "Count what?" There was a pause. A long one. "The end," the child whispered. The call disconnected. The building changed after that. The air grew heavy, like pressure building before a storm. The lights dimmed slightly, never fully flickering, just enough to make everything feel unstable. My security radio crackled. It hadn't worked in years. Static filled the speaker. Then voices, hundreds of them. Men, women, children, all whispering numbers, out of sync. 12, 11, 10. I ran for the exit. The doors wouldn't open. The window showed something wrong. The city had stopped. Fireworks frozen mid-explosion. Cars halted in intersections. People motionless, arms raised, mouths open, trapped between seconds. Only the building was still moving. The phone started ringing again, this time in rhythm. 9, 8. I realized then that the calls weren't coming in. They were coming through. This place wasn't a call center. It was a relay. A listening point where voices passed through when time itself slowed down enough to hear them. 6, 5. I smashed my shoulder into the emergency exit. Nothing. 4. The phones went silent. 3. My desk phone rang one final time. I answered. The first man was back. "You hear us now," he said. "That means you're part of it." "Part of what?" I shouted. "The moment everyone ignores," he said calmly. "The space between years." "Dinner." I understood then. Midnight wasn't a celebration. It was a gap, and something used that gap to count who was still listening. 1. Midnight hit. The sound didn't explode, it collapsed. Every phone went dead. The radio went silent. The building exhaled. The doors unlocked. The city outside resumed. Fireworks finished exploding. People cheered, unaware that anything had stopped at all. I walked outside shaking. The building lights shut off behind me. The next day, the building was gone. Empty lot, no foundation, no records. I reported everything. No one believed me, except my phone. Every New Year's Eve at 11:42 p.m., it rings, no matter where I am. When I answer, I hear breathing, and then the counting begins. New Year's Eve had always been my favorite night. The excitement, the anticipation, the fleeting feeling that maybe, just maybe, a new year could actually change your life. But that year, everything went wrong. I had just moved into a small apartment downtown. Cheap, practical, nothing special, except for the view. The skyline glimmered with fireworks waiting to erupt. I told myself it didn't matter that I was alone, that I didn't need anyone to share the night with. By 10 p.m., the city streets were already packed with people laughing and shouting, music spilling from bars and apartments, and the smell of roasted chestnuts and alcohol mingling in the cold winter air. I stayed inside, pretending to enjoy the quiet. I had one bottle of cheap champagne, a laptop playing New Year's countdown videos on repeat, and an old deck of cards I hadn't touched in years. It was then that I noticed something unusual. My front door, which I had locked twice, was slightly ajar. I froze. "Must be the wind," I muttered. But the air in the apartment was still. No drafts, no sounds from the hallway. Nothing. I closed the door firmly, double-checked the lock, and tried to shake off the unease. I poured a glass of champagne and sat down at the table. That's when the first card moved. It wasn't a strong gust of wind. It wasn't a draft. The Jack of Hearts slid across the table as if someone had pushed it, but no one was there. I reached out to pick it up, and the remaining cards suddenly fanned themselves out. A single card stood upright, the Ace of Spades. A small, unfamiliar voice whispered from the corner of the room, "Your turn." I whipped my head around. Nothing. Empty room. Just shadows stretching across the floor. "Who's there?" I said, my voice trembling. No answer. Only the faintest sound of shuffling cards. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it. Alcohol, stress, being alone, all the usual excuses. I reached for the deck. The Ace of Spades jumped into my hand on its own. At 11:30 p.m., the clock struck. A voice, soft and almost musical, whispered again, "Do you want to play?" I froze. The voice didn't come from the corner or the walls. It seemed to come from inside me. I couldn't respond. I couldn't move. The room darkened. The lights flickered. Shadows stretched longer, as if time itself were bending. The cards on the table formed a circle. Around the circle, numbers appeared on the floor, glowing faintly. 1, 2, 3, 4, leading toward me. Then the voice came again. "Count with me." I wanted to run, but my legs didn't respond. A sudden cold washed over me, freezing my blood in my veins. 5, 6, 7! The cards jumped from the table, spinning like they had a life of their own. Shadows rose from the floor, forming humanoid shapes, faceless, dark, silent. They surrounded me, moving in rhythm with the count. 8, 9. The room felt infinite. No walls, no ceiling, only the circle of cards and the endless shadows. The shadows leaned closer. Each number the voice said made them step further into my space. 10, 11. I realized the voice wasn't coming from the room. It wasn't outside. It was me. The whispering had adopted my tone, my accent, my hesitation. 12. The lights exploded. Or maybe the darkness did. I couldn't tell. My vision tore apart, like static on a broken television. When I could see again, I was in the same apartment. The table was still. The cards were back in their deck, but my phone was blinking. A single notification. "Your turn begins at midnight." I had 30 minutes to figure out what that meant. 30 minutes to escape what had already chosen me. The city outside was still celebrating. Fireworks shattered the sky, music boomed, and people laughed without a care in the world. Inside, I sat, frozen, clutching the Ace of Spades. At 11:45 p.m., the whisper returned. "Do you want to play?" I didn't answer. I wanted to throw the deck into the trash. I wanted to run, but I knew it wouldn't let me. The room darkened again. Shadows pooled in the corners, forming shapes taller and thinner than humans. They circled the table, silent, waiting. I picked up the ace. My hand shook. The card burned against my fingers, cold as ice. "Place your bet," the voice said. I didn't understand. What did it mean? I didn't have money. I didn't want to gamble. The Ace of Spades jumped from my hand to the table on its own. A single card floated beside it. The Joker. "Choose wisely," the voice hissed. I reached for the Joker. Instantly, the shadows lunged. My heart stopped. Coldness filled my chest. My vision tunneled. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't alone in my apartment anymore. The city had disappeared. The walls melted into a gray mist. The shadows were all around, staring, faceless, waiting. The Joker card hovered before me. "Draw," the voice whispered. I pulled the card. It was me. My face screaming. My eyes wide with terror. The shadows reached toward the card, and then toward me. I tried to scream. My voice didn't work. I tried to run. My legs were gone. And then the clock struck midnight. Everything froze. The shadows vanished. The card crumbled to dust. The city returned. My apartment looked normal. The fireworks were still exploding outside. People still cheered. But I knew the truth. The game hadn't ended. It had just started again. Every New Year's Eve from that night on, a deck of cards appeared on my table. Always the ace of spades. Always the joker. Always shadows waiting. Always a voice whispering, "Do you want to play?" And I can't say no, because if I do, they take someone else in my place. The next New Year's Eve arrived faster than I wanted to admit. I had spent the entire year avoiding mirrors, avoiding decks of cards, even avoiding the thought of midnight entirely. But no matter where I went, no matter what I did, the cards always found me. The ace of spades, the joker, always waiting silently on a table I didn't own anymore. At first I tried ignoring it. I didn't touch the deck. I left it in the corner of my apartment. I thought if I avoided it, the shadows wouldn't come. But the moment the clock ticked closer to 11:45 p.m., the room would darken. The air would grow heavy. The shadows would return. This time, I decided I had to understand the rules of the game. If I didn't, I would never survive another year. I studied the deck for hours, noting patterns in the card's movement. The ace always appeared first. The joker always followed. The numbers on the floor would glow in sequence, counting me toward something I couldn't yet see. I decided to prepare. I lit candles around the room, placed salt in small circles around each corner, stacked mirrors along the walls, hoping to reflect or trap whatever waited in the darkness. I repeated every superstition I had ever heard, every old trick I could find online about spirits and curses, trying to buy myself time. The moment came. 11:50 p.m. The whisper returned. "Do you want to play?" I had no choice. I reached for the ace. It jumped into my hand without me touching it. Shadows began forming in the corners of the room, taller, thinner, more solid than ever. But this time I didn't panic. I spoke aloud. "I want to know the rules. I want to understand." The shadows paused. The ace glowed brighter, and the numbers on the floor appeared again. 1, 2, 3. I realized the counting wasn't random. It was tracking my choices, measuring my fear, calculating my survival. The joker floated beside the ace, spinning slowly, laughing silently. I understood then. The game was not just about drawing cards. It was about playing with the darkness inside myself. Every year, I had been running. Every year, the shadows grew stronger because I hadn't faced them. I took a deep breath and spoke again. "I accept the game, but I will not run. I will not be afraid." The shadows moved closer, their forms clearer. I could see fingers now, long and skeletal, reaching for the cards, but they did not touch me. Instead, the joker hovered over the ace. A single card rose in the center, the King of Hearts. I recognized it immediately. My own face printed on the card, smiling. I picked it up. The shadows surged forward, and the room seemed to stretch infinitely. My apartment dissolved. I was no longer just in the room. I was inside the game itself. Cards floated around me, spinning like galaxies. Shadows danced between them. Whispers filled every corner of my mind. And then I heard another voice. Different. Louder. Older. Familiar. You finally accepted, it said. Now you play. I realized the voice belonged to me. The version of me trapped in the first game, from the very first New Year's Eve. I had been practicing all year, avoiding, surviving. But my own fear had created the rules. My hesitation had allowed the shadows to grow. I drew the King of Hearts closer. I could feel the power of the deck coursing through my hands. For the first time I understood. The cards were not only a curse, they were a challenge. And if I could master them, I could change the outcome. The shadows circled, waiting for me to act. The numbers glowed brighter, counting down to midnight again. I had to make a choice. I could play safely, letting the game repeat, letting another version of me suffer next year. Or I could gamble, face the shadows fully, and risk losing everything. I spread the cards across the room, each one glowing faintly. The ace, the joker, my king, all spinning in perfect harmony. The shadows lunged. I didn't move back, I stepped forward. The room exploded into light. The cards danced like flames. The whispers became screams. The shadows collided with me and passed through, their essence absorbed by the deck itself. I felt every year of fear, every hesitation, every moment of avoidance, leaving me. And then, silence. The apartment was normal again. The cards lay flat on the table. The clock struck midnight. Outside, fireworks exploded. People cheered. The city celebrated. But I knew it had changed. The game would continue, yes. But now I was a player who understood. I could face it. I could survive it. The deck remained on the table, waiting. Every New Year's Eve, the shadows would return. But I was ready. The whisper came one last time. Soft and distant. Do you want to play? And I smiled. Yes. I had always hated New Year's Eve. The crowds, the noise, the way everyone pretends that the turn of a calendar can fix years of mistakes. That year, though, I had no choice. My friends had left town, my family was out of the country, and the apartment was too small to hide from myself. I decided to take a walk around my neighborhood just before midnight, hoping the cold air would distract me. Snow had started falling lightly, covering the streets in a quiet, almost beautiful blanket. For a while I felt nothing but peace. Then I saw him. He was standing on the corner, alone, watching me. A tall man in a long coat, face obscured by shadows, and a brimmed hat. He held a small black box in his hands, clutching it as if it contained something precious. I hesitated, my breath visible in the cold night air. Something about him made my stomach tighten. I wanted to turn and walk away, but curiosity rooted me to the spot. He smiled, not the friendly kind, but a slow, unsettling curve of lips that didn't reach his eyes. "Happy New Year," he said. His voice was calm, almost hypnotic. "Do you want to play a game?" I forced a laugh. "It's freezing. Maybe later." But he didn't move. He only tilted his head, keeping his gaze locked on me. "Midnight is coming," he said. "You only have one chance." I shook my head and started walking faster. Snow crunched under my feet. The streetlights flickered overhead. I didn't look back. At midnight, I was home. Safe. Or so I thought. The apartment was quiet. I poured a glass of champagne and tried to ignore the unease settling into my chest. Then the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. The building was mostly empty, and my neighbors had all gone to parties. Cautiously, I opened the door. No one was there. just a small black box sitting on the doormat. I picked it up. It was cold. Heavy. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones. The box clicked open. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. I looked down at it. It was me, standing on the same corner where I had seen him earlier, smiling, holding a small black box in my hands. Only I had never been there. Not yet. A note fell from the box. Make a choice. Play, or let it play you. I backed into the apartment, heart racing. The city outside erupted with fireworks, oblivious. The snow continued to fall, covering everything in a peaceful white mask. But I knew the truth. At that moment I realized the stranger had marked me. Midnight had passed, but the game had just begun. I tried to leave, to destroy the box, to throw it in the trash, but every option felt wrong. Something was watching, waiting, shaping my choices before I could even make them. Hours passed. I didn't sleep. I didn't move. The black box sat on the table, and I stared at it, unable to look away. Every sound outside, footsteps, laughter, fireworks, made me flinch. The longer I stared, the more I felt it. A pulse inside the box, syncing with my own heartbeat. And then, a whisper. "Your turn," it said. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But my hands moved on their own. I reached for the box. The lid clicked closed, and everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. Sunlight filtered through the blinds. The city was quiet, normal, and the snow had stopped. But the black box was gone. I thought it was over. Until I checked my phone. A notification. A message from an unknown number. Next year, we play again.